users streamline their process. So today I'm going to give you a demo of how to set up the app and show you all how it works. So first thing, we are going to go to the app marketplace, right? And we're going to look for the app QuickBooks. And there it is, it's new. And we're going to click on it and use the app. Now with this app, there are two ways to use it. The app comes with a preset template that should make it easy for you guys to plug and play. But you also can add this integration to your existing workflow. For demo purposes, we're going to focus on adding it to a template. We're going to select our template and add the app. So while this is downloading, typically what will happen is it will prompt you to sign into your QuickBooks account. So you'll sign in with your username and password. And what we see right here under this QuickBooks Invoicing folder is this preset template for you guys. So what is in it is we have this QuickBooks onboarding board with all of your documentation, your guides, how to get started, how to use the app. And in the main table, we have quick links for you on both the Monday side of things and on the QuickBooks side of things. And I know some folks that registered don't have QuickBooks accounts. So if you're thinking about getting one, I highly recommend using this discounted new user account link. And then secondly, what we have in the template is we have this board, which is our sales pipeline board, where we have most of our columns set up. And this is where the real integration will happen. We also have a customer template board as well, and then a preset dashboard with widgets that are already set up, along with a support hub if you want to find any documents or request support or whatever is needed. Right. So let's talk about the board setup and how to make this work. So it's key for this app to work is that you set up your QuickBooks side, your QuickBooks account, and that you set up your Monday.com board in the right structure. So on the QuickBooks side of things, you're going to want to make sure that you have your products and services established, your payment terms, your payment methods, and if taxes are applicable. So once you have those things set up on QuickBooks, we can then focus on setting up the board structure on Monday. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in a potential lead, and we can kind of dive into this. So as folks who send out invoices, you're probably familiar that you can send out one line item for an invoice, or you can send out multiple line items. And most people typically send out multiple line items. So if we're going to use multiple line items, we're going to want to leverage sub items. So I'm just going to go in here and add some in here, and we'll cover that. Okay. All right. So now let's dive deeper into the board structure column setup that we need. So since we are going the multiple line items route, we are going to want to make sure that we have this drop-down column called product/service, a number column for quantity, and a number column for unit price, along with an optional description text. So these are the core columns that are needed for multiple line items. Now, at the line item level, what we're going to need is some sort of status. The status is going to trigger the recipe to generate and or send. And then we also need a status to update if it's been sent, paid, or overdue. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you have that. Now, what you'll notice here is we also have product, service, unit price, quantity, and description at the line item level. You're going to leverage these columns if it's a single line item in QuickBooks. So we'll skip over this for this demo. And then if you include any discounts or shipping costs, you'll want to add some number columns in the board as well. And then it's very important that you have a status column for your payment terms. And this will sync from QuickBooks. We'll go over how that works and all of that. you'll want a total invoice amount column. And really what this does is it takes all of the things that you are invoicing, like say you have multiple line items and maybe you include taxes or shipping or additional fees, and it takes the total of it. So you don't necessarily need to have a formula column in this workflow. This will automatically sync from QuickBooks. All right, so moving over to the customer side of things, as most of you are aware, you do have to create a customer in order to send an invoice. So these columns here are used to create the customer in the integration. Now, the bare minimum that you'll need is the company or the client name. And if you want to generate and send an email, you'll also need the email column. But you have the ability to add phone number, which should be a text column, along with, street address, city, state, zip code, and country. And the last three columns that you'll need is an invoice sent date, invoice paid date, and an invoice number. So these are the core columns that are needed in order to make this integration work. So what we'll do here is, now that we've got our board set up, we will head to the integration center and see what integration recipes we can add in. And there we go. All right, so when we click on the app in the integration center, we're going to see 9 recipes that are ready to go. And for the purpose of this demo, we are going to capture the 4 most popular recipes to use. So the first 2 recipes that we're going to use is to sync your payment terms from Monday to, from QuickBooks to Monday, along with syncing your products and your services from QuickBooks to Monday. So the way this works is we'll add this recipe in. And something to note while we're waiting for this is that the syncing is one way. So if you add your new terms or your new products in QuickBooks, it will automatically sync to Monday, but it will not sync from Monday to QuickBooks. So something just to call out if you plan to use that. So now we just synced our terms, and now we're going to sync our products and service. So like I mentioned, there are 2 ways to kind of send an invoice, one being single line items and the second being multiple line items. And with this recipe, you have the ability to sync both at the sub item level and at the line item level. So we're going to select sub items here, and we'll add that to the board. And now what we'll do is we'll go to the board and see what it looks like. So we can see right here, we have our products or services as our sub items. And you can see that this was blank earlier before, but now that we set up this integration, it just took what was in our account and created it as products and services, along with our terms. So that's synced as well. So once you set this up once, you don't really need to set it up again. So now we will focus on the last 2 recipes that we'll cover. And this is really to create a customer and generate and or send an invoice. So there are 2 ways to do this. We have realized that some folks like to generate, create a customer and generate the invoice, but want a little bit more control and visibility to what is going out. So we have a recipe here that will create a customer, generate the invoice, and then you would have to go into QuickBooks and send it out. But then we also have another recipe where you have the ability to create a customer, generate and send an invoice. And for demo purposes, we're going to go with the generate and send, because who doesn't love more automation? All right. All right, so now we've got our recipe, and now we're just going to have to plug in the columns to make this work. So basically it says that when a status changes to something, so you have the ability to choose any label you want, but we're going to go with, this status changes to generate and send invoice. Now we are going to create a customer. When mapping this out, it's important to note that the left side is the QuickBooks fields and the right side is your Monday columns. So, you can map as much as you want, name, company name, right? But the bare minimum, it is required that you just have a display name, and the display name could be your customer or or the company name. Now, if you're going to generate and send, I highly recommend using email. So I'll map that as well. I'll map out phone and then address. Okay. We don't have these columns in the board, but if you did want them, you would just map them accordingly. Right? And now we're going to map out what our invoice looks like. So like I said before, left side is the QuickBooks fields, right side is the Monday columns. So if you are using a single line item route, you are going to map out right here your products and your service, along with your quantity, your rate, and your terms. Now, if you are going the multiple line item route and you're using sub items, you do not need to map these columns out. It is critical, though, that you have the correct spelling on each column, because what it will do is it will look for those column names and then generate the invoice. So we don't essentially need this right now, but just calling that out on how to do that. And then what we're going to want to do is that once an invoice is generated and sent, we're going to want to update an invoice status. We're going to want to update the invoice number, the total amount, which I said earlier is like the grand total, including, everything plus any fees that you might have. And then we're going to want to drop in the invoice set date. So we'll add that to the board. All right. And our last recipe that we want to add is to mark it as paid. And that is a recipe right here that says that when an invoice status changes to something or changes. All right, so when the invoice status is changed for invoice number, we're going to change that invoice status and the paid date. All right, so we've got our board set up, we've got our recipe set up. We are ready to add some data to the board to see how this would work. Now, if this is part of your process, you probably won't be coming in here and filling this out one by one, right? It's going to be baked into your process where you're gathering this information while you're trying to close the deal or throughout your sales process. All right, we're going to skip over this and we're going to go to our terms. We'll do net 30. Okay. All right, so now we have all of the required columns filled out. And what we'll do here is we're going to trigger the recipe, which is generate and send. And what we'll notice momentarily is that this status automatically changed from open to sent. So what that means now is that it was sent, and I am going to pop into my email any second right now and see what it looks like as an end user. So let's refresh. And here we go. I just got the email. It says your invoice is ready. And, all of this was customized on the QuickBooks side of things. So when you set up your account, just make sure you have that. And then if I scroll down to the bottom, I can see the invoice. I can see who it's billed to, the invoice number, the terms, when it was sent, and then it's calculating that due date. And then these are our sub items, which we had in our Monday board. It's showing quantity, rate, and amount. And then we have the ability right here to pay the invoice. Now, the way I have my QuickBooks set up is debit, credit, bank. As long as you have this set up on your account, it will accept the payment that you have set up. So this is what it looks like for the end user. And then we'll pivot back to the Monday board. And what you'll notice here is it dropped in that invoice number along with that invoice sent date. All right, so on the QuickBooks side of things, I'm going to mark this as cash so that it then triggers this status to be changed. One moment. All right, I just processed that. And there it is. So now it's marked as paid, which then syncs from QuickBooks. So you have the ability to, not worry about it syncing back and forth, and it just kind of all flows into one. So you just need to manage and send your invoices, and the rest is kind of up to the integration. So that's